Picture your family tree for a second. There's you, your parents, their parents, and so on. If you just keep tracing that line back, you're going to fly past the powdered wigs and the chainmail, right past the woolly mammoths, until you stumble upon a very specific, ancient individual. And as we're going to see in this explainer, you are actually remarkably lucky to be alive right now. Because think about it. While you're sitting there enjoying mild caffeine dependencies, super reliable Wi-Fi, and endless snacks from the pantry, your distant ancestor was, well, squatting in the dirt, chewing on a beetle, and honestly just trying not to die before sundown. No name, no shoes, and absolutely no idea that you would ever even exist. It's kind of crazy to think about, right? You are literally the byproduct of violent coincidence and stubborn biology. If that nameless ancestor, or honestly any one of the thousands of people in your ancestral chain, had tripped at the wrong moment, gotten eaten by something with sharp teeth, or just failed to reproduce, well, you simply wouldn't be here. You exist strictly because 1,000 people before you managed not to die when they realistically probably should have. So, to truly appreciate this, we're doing a survival countdown. We're going to look at 5 of the deadliest periods in human history, ranking them from, bad but survivable, all the way to absolute right your will at birth near extinction. Let's look at the absolute gauntlet your ancestors had to run.
Starting us off, coming in at number 5, we have the Ice Age, a literal frozen wasteland.
Go back roughly 20,000 years to the last glacial maximum. Earth was not exactly cozy. Global temperatures plummeted, and your daily routine literally involved fighting off school bus-sized woolly mammoths with little more than a sharpened stick. You're huddling in huts made entirely out of mammoth bones, surviving alongside massive predators like cave lions. And remember, there are 0 antibiotics, so a simple infected scratch from a thorn? That was a death sentence. Your only medical care was basically chewing on some random plants and just hoping for the best.
Now let's fast forward on our timeline from that freezing, nomadic survival to about 10,000 years ago. Humanity got tired of chasing those mammoths around and had what they thought was this brilliant idea to just stay in one place.
Which brings us to number 4, the dawn of agriculture, or as we might call it, the farming mistake.
Right, so early humans swapped out their highly mobile hunting lifestyle to settle down in permanent villages and plant crops. But this unleashed an absolute buffet of new problems. Packing people so closely together meant diseases could suddenly spread like wildfire. Plus, this massive diet shift caused widespread malnutrition. We're talking horrifying dental disasters where teeth literally rotted right out of people's faces. And the worst part? A single drought, a flood, or a swarm of locusts meant total village starvation, while everyone just helplessly glared at the empty sky.
Speeding right along into number 3, we hit the Mongol invasions. Invaders and dust clouds.
Picture this. If you were alive in the 13th century and you saw a dust cloud on the horizon, you had maybe 3 minutes to panic before your entire city became a parking lot. Led by Genghis Khan, a man who treated mercy like it was a complete myth, the Mongols basically invented mobile warfare centuries before tanks even existed. Their horse archers were hitting targets from 300 yards away while riding at a full, terrifying gallop. They struck incredibly fast, hit unimaginably hard, and left absolutely nothing standing.
And the sheer scale of the slaughter is it's hard to wrap your head around. To put it into perspective, historians estimate the Mongol invasions wiped out a staggering 10% of the entire world's population. Just let that sink in for a second. At a time when the global population was already pretty small, 1 in 10 people across the entire globe were brutally erased from the map.
Down to number 2, the Black Death, a terrifying biological wildfire.
Okay, so in 1347, Europe receives a deadly package from Central Asia, courtesy of some highly motivated fleas carrying the Yersinia pestis bacterium. This wasn't just your average sickness. It tore through towns like an absolute wildfire. Survival was essentially a terrifying lottery in an era with a 0 concept of personal hygiene. You could catch it from a handshake, a shared cup, or literally just breathing the same medieval air as an infected person. The symptoms were brutal. We're talking giant swollen lymph nodes, high fevers, and vomiting blood. And the medical response? Doctors just vibe-checked the plague wearing those creepy, beak-like bird masks filled with flowers, which, shockingly, did exactly nothing.
The numbers here really hammer home the absolute devastation. It's estimated that somewhere between 30 and 60% of Europe's entire population was completely wiped out in just a few short years. Entire villages were abandoned, economies completely collapsed, and the sheer density of death is honestly almost impossible for our modern minds to comprehend. And finally, we arrive at the number one absolute worst time to be born in human history, the Toba supervolcano and what we'll call the near deletion. Roughly 74,000 years ago, Toba erupted and launched over 670 cubic miles of ash and debris into the sky. That is enough material to completely bury the entire United States. This triggered a volcanic winter so devastating that the sun was literally blocked out for an estimated 6 to 10 years. Global temperatures crashed by up to 27 degrees Fahrenheit. Plants withered, animals starved, and global ecosystems just entirely collapsed. Lush forests became graveyards, and rivers simply dried up.
This environmental cataclysm caused what scientists call a genetic bottleneck. Basically, that's a sharp, catastrophic reduction in the size of a population. Humanity was pushed right to the absolute brink, squeezed so tightly by Mother Nature that we were nearly wiped entirely off the evolutionary map.
And the crucial takeaway here is this jaw-dropping number. It's estimated that the total global human population shrank to fewer than 3,000 individuals. Just imagine that, a genetic bottleneck so incredibly tight that every single person alive today likely descends from that tiny handful of survivors. That's fewer people than you'd fit in a small high school gym. And they were fighting to survive in freezing darkness, starving, with the constant, terrifying fear that today might be the last day anyone ever sees the sun.
But then there's stubborn biology, the miracle of you. Against absolutely all odds, a tiny handful of desperate humans refused to give up. They endured the darkness, the freezing cold, and the starvation. They just kept fighting, day in and day out, simply so that your ancestral line could continue. You exist strictly because they didn't give up when everything else on the planet did.
Which leaves us with this final thought. You are the miracle of thousands of near misses. You are the specific miracle your ancestors fought school bus-sized mammoths and volcanic winters for. So what are you going to do with your incredibly unlikely existence today before natural selection does its thing?